Well, hi, my name is James Bennett and welcome to this 4K special edition release of Canon Films Bloodsport. I'm joined today by Sheldon Ledditch, writer of this movie, director of Lionheart and Double Impact, and also joined by Paolo Toscia, who plays the character of Paco in the movie.
Okay, so here we are, Hong Kong. We pretty much opened up Double Impact the same way with aerial shots of Hong Kong, kind of similar to the ones that were used here. And actually, for Double Impact, here's the talk about the gates.
These two doors are actually the doors of the How Wong Temple at Junction Road in Kowloon. And of course, we're made believe it's the entrance into the Kumite headquarters, and we're now at Clearwater-based studios where we see them setting up for the infamous Kumite, which is a Japanese word for hand grappling or free fighting or fighting freestyle or freestyle fighting, depending on the context.
So we just saw the name Newt Arnold, a Newt Arnold film. Newt is the director of Bloodsport. And Newt was a very famous first assistant director. One of the films that he was the first AD on was Blade Runner. So this was his very first movie as an actual director.
He's a great director.
He did a terrific job on this movie. Has a lot to do with it being the great film that it is. And
with great cinematography from David Worth, too.
Now we have John Chung. And
very accomplished martial artist in Hong Kong and known throughout the world. Great actor, too. Very real. Both those guys are very real right there.
Here we have Mohammed Kizi with Shukaliki, what's supposed to be representing capoeira. But we don't really see too many capoeira moves here.
No, we don't see any, actually. This is supposed to be Brazil, I suppose.
Yes.
Michel Kisi was an old friend of Jean-Claude's from...
Here we have the intro of the Jackson character played by Don Gibb, and of course approached by...
That's Mark DeSalle. That's the producer of the film. And Mark is the one who originally hired me to write the screenplay. I believe I talked... here's... what's this guy's name now?
David Ho Wing Hin.
Oh, right. We use this guy in Double Impact.
He gets the hook kick in the face from the Chad character, correct? At the harbour. He's the guy with the machine gun.
Yes, in Double Impact, he gets kicked in the face by the Chad character.
We just see the title of Paul Herzog, who also wrote the score and conducted the music for Kickboxer.
Great score, and so is David Worth, incredible cinematographer.
David Worth here. And actually, David Worth, to me, says they shot 240,000 feet of film for this movie to cover of course, a lot of us to cover the fight scenes. Here we're at Stanley Barracks. And that's the actual gymnasium inside Stanley Barracks, and we get an intro to the one and only Jean-Claude Van Damme. And as you can see from the word go, he's got a great physique, a lot of charisma, some great kicks. Not too many people can kick a speedball the way he's doing it with his feet. And of course he plays a ninja in this, so that's why later on the embroidery on his martial arts uniform, you'll see it's Chinese characters with Japanese meaning. Here we have the one and only Sheldon.
Yeah, and also my story credit. Now these uniforms are kind of funky. These are not U.S. Army uniforms, and these are not U.S. Army uniforms because this is in Hong Kong, and I think they used some real soldiers, some locals, but this is certainly not the proper uniforms for U.S. soldiers to be wearing. And they certainly don't have the epaulets like these do. But what the hell, it works.
And that was the exterior of Stanley Barracks we just saw, where those soldiers are marching. And next up we will see Dukes arrive at the home of Tanaka and being greeted by Mrs. Tanaka, played by Lily Long. She was a very prolific actor in Hong Kong TV and film. And the interior scenes were actually shot inside this house in Hong Kong. This is not a set, this is a real house. We'll be introduced to the young Frank Dukes in a moment, played by Pierre Raffini, and the son of Tanaka, Shingo, played by Sean Ward. And strangely enough, this is the only movie they ever did. Both of
Right,
them.
right, yeah. Well, I guess they were just scrambling for a couple of kids that could speak English properly to put in the movie.
Correct. Paolo, were you on the set for any of this, or were you mostly just there for the fights?
No, I was more on the set for the fights and the training and the prepping of the fights.
So we have the flashback here. We see the katana sword on the mantelpiece. And
Now, just to get this part straight, I was not on the location at all. Generally, the writer gets left behind. They very rarely take the writer with them on location, so I wasn't there for any of this. And fortunately, we have Paolo here, who was there the entire time and got to watch them filming the fight scenes.
so here we have the young Frank
Right,
decides not to steal the katana sword. He's admiring it. And you'll see in a second he gets taken out with a low round kick by Shingo, Tanaka's son.
Now, what's always amused me about this scene, this kid looks nothing like Jean-Claude Van Damme, but he looks very much like Frank Dukes. He looks and acts very much like the real Frank Dukes. So that's kind of ironic, but you certainly wouldn't say that this kid turned out to be Jean-Claude Van Damme.
So here we have Roy Chow, very prolific Hong Kong actor. Played the judge in Dragons Forever with Jackie Chan. Played the judge in Righting Wrongs with Cynthia Rothrock and Yun Bu. He was a restaurant owner in Heart of Dragon with Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung. And of course, arguably his most maybe famous role was Lao She in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. A very prolific actor.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Died a few years back.
Uh-huh.
And here we have him talking to a young Frank Duke's parents and convincing them to allow him to train their son. And of course, the premise of the training, the background is ninjutsu.
Now, I actually met Frank Dukes' parents, and the dad really does look kind of like Frank Dukes' dad. The mom looks nothing like his real mom, though.
You use science to make vines grow better.
Again, this was shot inside that home that is the home of Tanaka in the movie. It's actually a live location, not a set. Here we have the start of the training between a young Frank Dukes and Shingo. And you see the platform. Of course, the platform they're training on is a training platform, so it's a lot smaller than the actual physical platform they use in the Kumite, which was 40 feet long by 20 feet wide. That's a pretty big platform. But I guess they had it that big so it could allow for the cameras. Correct,
Yes,
Paolo?
Correct. Yeah, it allowed for movement, to use angles and also to give a bit of movement to the fighters so that the fighters could get a bit into the real art that they demonstrated.
Because I remember you telling me it was quite big. It was pretty big when you stood on it. So here there's a little bit of animosity between these two characters, but of course they become friends now because Frank Dukes, beat off his attackers. And
Yeah, these kids were not professional actors, as far as I know. And I think Newt got a pretty decent performance out of them.
now in this scene we're looking at Shingo has died. Now in the original script written by Sheldon, Shingo actually dies in a car accident, and we've learned that by Frank actually talking to the Jackson character. But in this cut of the film, we don't know how he died.
Yeah, but Frank changed his story about how Shingo died a number of times, and one of the stories was that he died in Vietnam, fighting in Vietnam as a soldier, which makes no kind of sense because they're from they're not Americans.
Now we hear Frank Duke's character convincing Tanaka to train him. And of course, you can see when you look here the undeniable charisma that Jean-Claude has. And you could see by the time you watch the end of this movie that he was potentially going places.
Yeah, this is one of the most convincing pieces of acting that Jean-Claude does in the entire film right here.
I came here to start over.
Once he speaks, anyways.
Another chance to pass on the teaching.
And this was actually shot inside the Tanaka home as well.
Mm-hmm. think he says something like, "I can do it."
He says, "Teach me.
Teach
I
me,
can
I
do
can
it."
do it. Right.
Teach me. I can do it. You are not Japanese.
Now, of course, as I explained in my interview, which is on this Blu-ray also, a lot of this was fictional. In fact, most of it's fictional. None of this ever really happened. This is Frank Dukes telling tales, telling stories. But those stories, I was able to weave them together into a really terrific movie.
So here we are on the tatami mat, and of course there's the first scenes of Tanaka training Dukes, and if you look closely in the background, you'll see the sign with the specific striking points poster and stuff. Of course, the meridian system and all the things that were made believe ninjas would do and how they would train. These are pretty good. It's very easy cut. You see Jean-Claude has some very sharp kicks, and we'll see him in a moment do his famous split, which he became renowned for. And what was new at that time was that you didn't see too many people in film that had the bulk that Van Damme had at this time in his career that could kick and move like that. Jean-Claude on this movie told me that he weighed 80 kilos on this movie.
What's that translate into with pounds?
It's about 100.
65.
It's 175.
Oh, okay.
But that's when that's pumped up, that's a lot of weight, and to have the balance of the balance of the kicking and the flexibility and the gracefulness that he
was
could.
good. He was in his prime. He was in his prime with a physique unequaled, and with martial arts movement like very few other actors at the time, even martial artists on camera.
And this movie really revolutionized the movie fight scene, tournament fight movie, because the last big international hit, first and last before this movie, was really Enter the Dragon.
Right.
And then
Enter the Dragon was not a tournament movie. Basically, the tournament was just the excuse that they used to get this cop, played by Bruce Lee, onto this island so he could take down this drug lord. But what Bloodsport did, we really got the ball rolling on tournament movies, because this is the first tournament movie. Unless somebody could tell me, oh no, there was another tournament movie before this. Enter the Dragon is not it. This is the first movie. It was just all about the tournament. We start out with people going to the tournament, then we show the tournament. We've got flashbacks to how the Frank Dukes character ended up there. And when the movie ends, the Frank Dukes character is getting on the plane and going home. He won the tournament.
And it had 2 or 3 sequels, which were nothing like this.
Right.
And then
right.
you had on the other side, you had Roger Corman doing the blood fight movies, and then Bolo did a couple of
Blood Fight, Blood Fist, Blood Games. This basically spawned an entire cycle of tournament movies, of martial arts tournament movies, because unless somebody can point one out to me that was similar beforehand.
Well, there was one.
There
was what you'd call it wasn't really a tournament-specific movie,
right?
But there was some fighting in it which kind of unfolded in a tournament-like sense, and it was the Octagon with Chuck Norris. But it wasn't as specific as this.
Wasn't specific. Oh,
No.
okay.
Now here we have, of course, this fantastic scene of where Jean-Claude's between a tree and a bamboo being stretched. And of course, he could do this before his breakfast in the morning, but he's in the training phase here, so he has to make us think that he's in excruciating pain.
That he's getting stretched for the first time.
And if you were to get stretched like that for real first time, you wouldn't walk for 6 months.
This was a great scene that made so many turn to stretching and yoga and try to do what Jean-Claude would do.
Were you on the set for that, Paolo? No. So this entire movie was shot in its entirety in Hong Kong?
Yeah, the entire movie was shot there.
Even we're supposed to believe at the start that he's in America and he's going to the Kumite. It was actually all shot in Hong Kong.
Yeah, all shot in Hong Kong, and just anybody who's been in the U.S. military would know right away that's not a U.S. military base. Those are not U.S. military uniforms, but they didn't have the budget to import uniforms so that it had the proper look. and it works. No, I don't think anybody's ever complained about it other than me and a few other people.
Well, I think the dynamism of Jean-Claude,
Right.
when you're watching him on screen, you're not looking at the background.
no,
I mean, he could be anywhere. I mean, he really had that. He really has and had at that time, obviously, the screen presence.
he had that charisma. Where basically, if he's on the screen with another actor or any number of other actors, you're looking at Jean-Claude. You're not looking at the other actors.
So now we're supposed to believe that he's sort of graduated and he's been awarded the katana sword, which I guess you could equate in real martial arts terms as someone testing and being ranked a black belt for the first time. And of course, we're supposed to believe this is a number of years in that he's been training Jean-Claude.
This is what we call a rite of passage.
And he holds it again like the ninja. And what we haven't spoken about yet was that there was a first cut of this movie that was very slow and didn't work at all. And Cannon actually brought in an editor called Michael J. Duddy.
Michael J. Duthie was brought in
He would
to
fix up
recut the movie.
He would fix up a lot of Cannon movies in those days, and he recut this, and Jean-Claude sat with him and recut the fight scenes, and we ended up with magic here.
And the way that Newt Arnold got to direct this movie, was because Cannon had made another movie that they ran into trouble with. The director didn't quite know what he was doing. They brought in Newt to be a ghost director. And Newt did such a great job. I guess Menachem Golan told him, okay, Newt, you're doing a great job here. I'm going to give you your own movie. Once this is done, I'm going to give you a movie that you'll get your name on with nobody else's. And so that was Bloodsport.
And Newt did a pretty good job.
And now, how long after Bloodsport came out? When did Newt Arnold pass away?
Newt Arnold passed away in 2000. Bloodsport came out February 26, 1988.
88. Okay, so
12 years later.
I can't remember if Newt directed another movie in the interim. I'd have to look it up, but I don't remember. But this is the only movie that he's really known for as a director.
It's a masterpiece what he did. Nobody's been capable of undoing it or doing better in terms of ratings, in terms of sales, in terms of stardom, and in terms of martial arts legends.
Now we cut to Hong Kong here, and we're on Hong Kong Island.
This looks like this is Nathan Road, right? I'm pretty sure
This is Wan Chai Road.
Wan Chai. Oh, okay.
You'll see here, if you look closely, when the camera's on Jean-Claude, they pass the Emerald Hotel. That was on Sai Ying Pun on Hong Kong Island. The Island Pacific Hotel now stands on that site.
So this is on Hong Kong Island. This is not Kowloon?
No,
This
this
is
is
Hong
Hong
Kong
Kong
Island.
Island. And that's Don Gibbs right there portraying an incredible character.
So you'll see the Emerald Hotel
Emerald
right
Hotel,
there.
all right, yeah.
That now is the Island Pacific Hotel.
Okay.
And that's in Hong Kong Island. We'll see next the East Lake Hotel, which is now the Mason Garden building on Hing Fat Street. And that's Causeway Bay.
Okay, so
Right here.
East Lake. Okay.
Now we're at the interior introduction of the Janice character played by Leah Ayres, and she did one or two other movies, and then did some TV. But this is really her claim to fame. Here she's sitting with John Chung and Dennis Chiu, who played Toon and Chuan, and she's trying to get info for the Kumite. But of course, everybody's playing silent because it's this secret tournament that nobody knows about, and of course, then they get pulled away. Just as we're talking about John Chung, he actually worked on Kickboxer as a choreographer and worked on Double Impact
And
as
Double
a
Impact, yeah.
choreographer.
And he
Now-
was on camera in Double Impact too. He played one of Zhang's thugs.
Here we
and-
cut to Dukes and Jackson playing the arcade machine. Now, this machine was actually created in Japan in 1984, and the name of this game is called Karate Champ. How appropriate for a movie like this. So they're inside the East Lake Hotel. Again, all interiors were shot at the East Lake Hotel, and it's cuts from Kowloon back to Hong Kong Island across the harbour and so on and so forth. And if you look at it correctly here, the actual way they're maneuvering their hands doesn't actually coordinate with what's happening on the screen of the game, but you have to know the game in order to realise that. But nevertheless, it's a good introduction, and how appropriate to have this game. Of course, Dukes wins, setting the pace for what we're going to see coming.
You want to see some real fighting? You can see me fight at the Kumite.
Next up is the introduction of Helmer and Rollins characters, visiting Mrs. Tanaka, played by Norman Burton, and Forrest Whitaker.
And of course, that game that they're playing, Bloodsport itself led to so many video games, Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter and all of those, all pretty much based on Bloodsport.
So here we see Dukes wins, of course, they introduce, and now we got two buddies. Now we're back to the actual physical house location of Mr. and Mrs. Tanaka, and we're introduced to the Rawlings and the Helmer characters, played by Norman Burton and Forrest Whitaker. And of course, Norman Burton was in Diamonds Forever with Sean Connery. He was also in The Towering Inferno. Forrest Whitaker has had a fabulous career and won an Academy Award for Best Actor in a Leading Role for The Last King of Scotland.
Forrest Whitaker had just finished playing in Platoon with Oliver Stone.
Right, yeah.
And then he came, he was cast and came to Hong Kong. Forrest, a great actor.
They kind of have a love-hate relationship here between them, these characters, where he consistently gets cut off by the Helmer character throughout the movie. Now we're cut back to the Eastlake Hotel. And this is the actual interior, and you'll see the logo, Eastlake, at the back.
Right,
Now, this is where we're introduced to the late Ken Sue. Ken Sue was...
this guy here.
Yeah, Kenneth Sue. He passed away about 4 years ago.
I believe he was our first AD on Double Impact.
Yeah, he was an assistant director on... He worked behind the scenes on a lot of these movies. So.
Right.
And he was the first assistant director on Kickboxer. He was actually the second assistant director on this movie. And he worked on Rush Hour and The Forbidden Kingdom as well. And, of course, a whole bunch of others. But for all your fans out there, you're going to have to do your own research. We got to stick with the movie so we can give you a brief lowdown.
This is Hong Kong Island here? Okay.
This is Nathan Road.
Road.
Hong Kong Island.
Now we're in one
There's
moment.
the Playboy Club right behind them.
You're going to see the Walled City. Of course, that was demolished. Started in 93, finished in 94. The Forbidden City. But that's it there. We're looking at it as we speak.
Yeah, it's the real Walled City.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist anymore.
And now in its place stands the Kowloon Walled City Park. And they actually kept one of the small buildings that was right in the middle of this Walled City. It still exists today.
Oh, okay.
So he's greeted by the old man, of course, with that famous line.
Yeah.
Okay, USA.
Okay, USA.
And there was that became very famous on apparel.
Right.
T-shirts and shorts and so on.
Supposed to be the triads that run the Walled City. This is supposed to be an entry into the Walled City, which is usually run by triads.
It actually is an entrance.
We're actually inside the Walled City. So you see, again, it's not exactly the most hygiene place to be. And we see various shots in alleys, and everything we're seeing here is real. This was the actual inside of the Walled City. This is how the people lived. Of course, a lot of criminals lived inside there, and Hong Kong authorities couldn't actually touch them once they were in there.
They wouldn't go in there. Just let them do whatever they wanted to do.
Right. Now, in a moment, we'll see the two doors, which supposedly bring us into...
Which were not at the Walled City.
They're not at the Walled City. They're actually the doors of the Hao Wing Temple at Junction Road in Kowloon. But this relocation has a lot of character.
Oh,
the Walled City.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
It
so
imposes
real.
respect. Not many walk. Everybody talks, but not many walk the walk. And so this actually imposes respect on anybody if they understand about Chinese Hong Kong culture and the process in which it survives. And this explains to the audience that he's going into the unknown, where it's dangerous, really, really dangerous, where the police doesn't even enter these areas.
Again, here we make the turn, and now we are at a different location, because when they're walking up before they make the right turn is actually the front of this temple.
This is the entry into the Kumite. into the championship, open hand championship.
So here we have all the fighters warming up. We see the officials and we see the man sitting beside us. We see Paolo here in his pink shorts.
I was representing Muay Thai, and I was a professional fighter at the time for Sotonikun Gym in Bangkok, which is a great gym, a factory of champions. And this is the first time that all these styles meet, and the energy was intense, and everyone was trying to shadow box a little bit, waiting, testing, looking at each other, checking each other out. And we tried to keep it as real as possible between all the fighters without major disagreements.
Now we have Jackson hands over his invitation. We don't know who trains him. We're never introduced to that. But he's accepted. And the Duke's character, played by Jean-Claude Van Damme, obviously, hands over his invitation. And they're skeptical because he's not Japanese. So, as you see what unfolds, they ask him to break the brick.
The bottom brick.
And of course then they insist on it being the bottom brick. Now, you'll hear them say, Dimmak, death touch. What Dimmak actually means is death touch or touch of death. And history has it that in ninjutsu, if you struck an actual area of the body with a specific strike at a specific time of the day, you could cause a delayed death reaction.
This
Hence,
is part
death
of
touch.
Wing Chun. Wing Chun, Bruce Lee. This is part of Bruce Lee's schooling and teachings. The deadly punch.
Breaking the bottom brick?
No,
you
the deadly punch that can travel
well,
through
actually,
your body.
Dimmock was talked about. There were ads in the back of comic books in the 50s and 60s by this guy named Count Dante. You ever hear of Count Dante?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, they bring us all together to see the approval. None of us, we look at him like, yeah, right, you know, not many believe the story. And he does it, and it gives him power in the character, which, you know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Dimmock was, there were ads, and you can see the ads. Some people have dug them up. There's the...
Of course, he smashes the brick, hence
Breaking the bottom
his
brick.
invitation is accepted. Now, next up, we'll see the character of Chong Li, played by Bolo Young, or his real name, Yang Si. But of course, after Enter the Dragon, in which his character name was Bolo, it stuck, so he used the name Bolo Young. But his real name's Yang Si. But he'll deliver a line where he says, "Brick not hit back." It's very similar to Bruce Lee's line to the O'Hara character in Enter the Dragon, where he says, "Boards don't hit back." But of course, we're setting the stage for a showdown. You can see the tension between them. He's playing a very strong character, Bolo, in this movie. And we cut back now. We are coming across the harbour and we're at the Royal Hong Kong Police Headquarters. It's the first time we see Philip Chan. He plays the character of Captain Chen. And of course, he appeared in many movies: Super Cop with Jackie Chan, John Woo's Hard Boiled, Jackie Chan's Twin Dragons, and he played Raymond Zhang in Double Impact.
Double Impact. So we carried over a number of actors from this from Bloodsport into Double Impact. And Philip Chan being one of them, with also Bolo and John Chung and that guy who was the first AD.
Ken Su.
Right.
So we're actually at the headquarters of the Royal Hong Kong Police. These are actually the real locations that were used in this film, which adds great character to the film. Of course, they have it in the sets all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You can see the height of the ceilings. It's a very old colonial building. You know, very, very, very real. And if you look at the sign over Norman Burton's head, it actually says Typhoon Chart.
Okay.
Of course, we'll talk a little bit about one of the locations is actually a typhoon shelter, but that'll come up a little later in the movie. And of course, here you have again where the Helmer character cuts off the Rawlins character. We have this kind of little bit of to and fro from these two characters throughout the whole movie.
I'm not sure if that was in any version of the script, the two characters being at odds with one another like that, but that might have been something that Newt Arnold worked into it by working with the actors.
Now we're back at the East Lake Hotel, and we see Hossein trying to harass the Janice character into going to the room to give him an interview. And of course he's interrupted by Dukes. And we will see in a moment the old flip the coin in the hand trick. And of course again you can see that this is slowly building tension. You can tell these two characters are going to meet. So when you look into this movie, it's very well structured. It's not just a crash bang boom movie. Like it's very well, you can see like
Right.
the way Bolo and the Chung Lee and the Duke's character interacted when he broke the brick. And now you see this, you see it's building a tension. You can see kind of like where it's going to go.
Yes, they're building a conflict, which is essential to a fight,
It's essential to any movie, basically, the drama.
And-
Drama is conflict.
and in this case, Jean-Claude is taking the good guy approach, the gentleman, and the rest of the people are the enemy.
Now, an actual scene that was shot but is not in this movie is where Jean-Claude and Dukes were actually sitting at a table having a couple of beers. And this is in the original script, this is where he tells the Jackson character how Shingo was killed, that it was a car accident. And he looks up and he sees the Janice character being harassed and then cut to where we're at now. But that scene was actually cut from the movie, but it was filmed.
Looks like he's mine. Now leave the lady alone.
And of course, he wins. He gets the lady. And now they're outside walking along the harbour. And you can see there's a building of a relationship here. And she's a reporter in the movie. She's trying to get a story on the Kumite, but it's this uber secret martial arts tournament where people get killed. And they all have one thing in common. They don't want to give it up.
Right. Now, Janice was not in the original script that I wrote. There was no female character in there. And that was Mark DeSalle's idea. He said, we got to have a love interest. We got to have, Jean-Claude's got to show a little bit of his ass. There's got to be some kissing. There's got to be something like that in the movie. Frank, in subsequent years, has said, I would never have had sex with somebody right before a tournament, which to me seems very accurate. I didn't think we needed a love interest at all. But it doesn't hurt the movie at the end of the day.
I think she did a great job. As Leah was fantastic, very realistic, beautiful. Everybody on the set loved her. And yeah, finally we see what Jean-Claude is really all about.
Now we cut back to the inside of the East Lake Hotel, and this was never seen before up to this. You never saw anybody do the splits between two chairs. And of course, as you see, he'll be doing what they call in ninjutsu, the 9 cutting finger hand They're actually hand exercises. They were used supposedly by the ninja in Japan. So when you see him do a lot of this stuff, that's actually the 9 cutting fingers hand exercises that he's doing. But as you see here, when you look, tremendous physique, great flexibility,
Incredible.
and great look at big arms.
Unbelievable. He was the first one in any aura of cinema. He was the first one to do the splits like that. It's suicidal almost what he's doing. And yet he could do it. And he started a fad where millions, if not more, continue to try and do this.
And you see here are some of the hand exercises of the 9 cutting fingers set. So we cut now to day 1 of the Kumite.
Now, who taught those hand exercises to Jean-Claude?
That most likely would have been taught to him by Frank Dukes.
Oh, okay.
That's most likely.
Mm-hmm.
And here we have the introduction, day 1. And you'll see that over where they mentioned... Now, just very quick, while we see the writing on Jean-Claude's uniform. Well, the big writing on the right side means basically shadow fighting warrior. And then on the right side, it basically means ghost, shadow ghost. And then the smaller writing basically means mountain and person. It ultimately all translates to ninja.
Now, according to Frank, and I believe this, he said most of the uniforms looked very, very dull. They were just like just ordinary karate gis, and he thought that something grander was needed for the Frank Dukes character. And of course, the way he put it was that, well, I actually wore something much nicer than that. So he ended up getting in touch with his school. He had a couple of dojos in L.A. and had a bunch of uniforms sent out to the production. That's true, Paolo?
I'm not sure about that.
Now we see
Okay.
Paolo sitting at the bottom left, and that's his actual Muay Thai shorts
Right.
and his Monkhoon.
The Mongkong on the head symbolizes to anybody in the martial arts that I represent Muay Thai, and I came to fight the Muay Thai style. And it's very respected throughout the world, and especially in Asia. Most fighters from most martial arts don't even attempt to fight Muay Thai fighters. They know what will happen, and the character was used as such.
Okay, so here we have day one of the Kumite. The introduction is over. And you will see when the names come up, the Chinese writing above the names of the fighters that comes up on the billboard actually basically just means ranking of dragons and tigers. You'll see the dragon on one side and the tiger on the other, which is very symbolic of Chinese martial arts or martial arts in general. But it just basically practically means a ranking of the martial artists.
And
So we have the first fight. It's Sen Ling.
Michelle Kesey.
Sen Ling versus Juan Paredes, and played by Mohammed Kizi, famous for Tong Po and kickboxer. Now Sen Ling appeared in a few films. His real name is Lam Shung Ching. He appeared in the Shaw Brothers, The Enforcer, and a number of other films. And he was most likely cast in Hong Kong, obviously, and brought in
Right.
for this. So we see, and you'll see each fighter wears a red sash, and the other will have a yellow sash.
orange.
And so
now,
here,
now Michelle Kesey, he's famous for playing Tong Po in Kickboxer, and Michelle, of course, is not Thai. He's actually from Morocco, but they couldn't find an actual Thai fighter that would look formidable enough to go up against Jean-Claude in Kickboxer, and so Jean-Claude came up with the idea of doing makeup on Michelle. So they got one of the makeup people from the movie to make him up like to look like he's Thai.
But I think that's far-fetched because there's so many Thais that are real Muay Thai fighters and good actors too.
I
that
couldn't
can play
tell
that
you.
role. I could because I was living there, so
No, I'm just telling
I
you,
saw
that's
so
what-
many.
That's what
big
Jean-Claude
guys.
said, that they
Well,
couldn't find anybody.
So it's
that's-
more of a friendship thing between friends, giving the role to a friend, helping.
so we see the
And
first
he did a great job.
the
Sean
first
did a
fighter
great
down.
job.
Now we see the second fight has Ray Jackson against. We're not too sure who this fighter is by name, but he kind of looks like a young Patrick Swayze from Roadhouse in a sense. But Ray Jackson doesn't actually demonstrate any particular martial arts style.
He was
in
a
the film
street
at all.
fighter.
He's basically a
Played
street fighter.
a biker street fighter, who can handle anybody and thinks he can do it.
He
Was
appeared
this
in-
guy an actual fighter though that he's fighting? The Jackson fighter?
No, I don't think so. Maybe a beginning fighter.
'Cause according
I'm
to
not
Frank,
sure.
they had a hard time finding fighters that were not Asian, and some of these guys were models, were male models.
Could be.
This guy could possibly have been a male model.
So of
He
course,
certainly doesn't come across as a real fighter.
Don Gibb appeared in U.S. Marshals and Bloodsport 2 and a number of other films.
Mm-hmm.
But here he is again. We see him setting the pace for a showdown with the Chung Lee character
think
by threatening him.
His most famous role was in a movie. What was the name of that?
Revenge of the Nerds. is
Revenge of
great.
the Nerds. Yeah.
He's great, and he kept himself in character right through the whole shooting, right through the whole film.
Now here's where the title Bloodsport comes from.
We
Very-
bleed when we fight. That's
What's that?
what it is. We bleed when we fight. We
very,
fighters.
very early on, Frank was telling me that it was a very bloody.
So this, for the first time, we see Chung Lee on the stage, and he fights Buddhaman Prang, who's played by Samson Lee. This is Samson Lee's only movie, actually.
The gambling that they're doing comes from Muay Thai, but also in Asia, gambling is, throughout the world, gambling is part of fighting. But especially in this case, it was used similar to what Thailand does when the fighters fight. People gamble on the fighters.
When you look at Bolo here for the first time, he has tremendous screen presence. First time on the platform. His physique is phenomenal. He's not too tall. He's very bulky. But he was
Impressive. is the word.
very impressive.
Scary and impressive. A complete fighter, a veteran, a professional, a real professional. His opponent is a great fighter in real life and a good actor, and he played his role well. It was much longer than that, but Bolo was exceptional. What a professional!
And of course, he kills his first opponent and throws him off the platform. Hence, telling us all that he's one badass, not to be messed with.
He's letting you know that people die fighting. This is no joke. That this is a blood sport.
And now, on this, he broke a world record. And of course, now for the first time, we see the Duke's character and Sadiq Hussain, played by Bernard Mariano, step onto the platform. And Mariano was actually working out in the gym and heard about a casting and went over there and got hired to play this role. And of course, they had a run-in the lobby of the East Lake Hotel earlier in the movie. And at the end of this, you'll see that Jean-Claude actually steps back and hits him with an elbow. And when he actually hit him with the elbow, he actually knocked him out with the elbow, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And right again, he breaks Chung Lee's record, hence making Chung Lee more vengeful. And here it is. Bang!
Oh, okay. So
He knocked him out with that elbow, and actually I think he knocked out he knocked out a tooth as well, right?
Well, that was Mark DeSalle's idea about the tooth, actually. That's where you see the guy with a gold tooth. Mark had this whole idea about the tooth getting knocked out, and then the janitor coming in and stealing the gold tooth.
And now we have a montage coming up. And what's interesting about this montage is that you see the fight scenes with no sound effects because they just Paul Herzog put the music over and it carries it. It's a testament to Jean-Claude and how well he edited the fight scenes that he didn't need sound effects to make the hits work. You know, and the first one we see is Attilio Real. He's in these blue silk pants fighting John Chung.
Wing Chun Kung Fu.
And he was Wing Chun, that's correct. And here it is.
He clips his nose.
Second one up is Ricardo Moro, played by Eric Neff, and he's fighting Wayne Archer. Now, Wayne Archer is somewhat of a veteran. He was in Tiger on the Beat, and he was a monk in the Armor of God, and he was in a number of films.
Both of them did a great job right here, playing capoeira and mixing it up with karate. Eric is a real fighter when he was younger. He studied a lot of kung fu.
Is that the black guy you're talking about?
Yes, great. He was.
And he lived out there in Hong Kong?
Yeah, he used to live there. He's a real fighter.
And now we have Chung Eep Mung versus Hung Chi
also
Sing.
a real fighter and Muay Thai fighter, veteran. You can see these guys are serious.
Now, Chi Shing Hung with the tattoos, this was actually the only movie he's ever done. And
I'll tell you why.
He's here with Dennis Chu.
And first
here we
time
have
people
Paco.
see Muay Thai on screen. This is the first time Muay Thai goes into action on Western film. The first time they see elbows to the head, and they see knees to the head, and they see the capability of Muay Thai destructing its opponent.
And there's
I'm wearing
referee.
real shorts, fighting shorts from my camp with the name Lamb, my nickname,
Here
my
we
fighting
have
nickname
Jackson.
from Bangkok.
So Jackson throws his opponent off the runway. That's one way you can win. Now here we have Chung Lee versus Mike Genova. He is actually a very renowned martial artist. Now we have Pumela, played by David Ho Wing Chin, with Henrik Wessel, and he was a boxer from Sweden. And we just saw Paco again. Now we have Dukes, and of course Bolo sidekicking an opponent off the platform.
The audience was incredible, the extras, everything, the feeling. There was so much energy when everybody was fighting and screaming. It was really beautiful to watch, and it's just different at the time. At the time, people weren't used to seeing movies like that and physiques like that and action like that, and it was really a mix of all the martial arts. That's why I say this film, Bloodsport, started mixed martial arts.
There was nothing quite like it beforehand.
So here we have Captain Chen telling Helmer and Rawlings that Frank Dukes is at the East Lake Hotel. They're telling Frank Dukes they want to take him home. Frank Dukes is telling them I'll be at the airport in 2 days.
Who would have guessed that this is a future Oscar winner here?
Forrest is very good in the role, though.
Oh, yeah.
He plays
yeah.
this role
He's-
very well.
He's good in everything he's ever done.
Invested a lot of time and money in you. Uncle Sam can't afford to let you get hurt. One get hurt.
So they're concerned that Dukes is going to get hurt, so they're trying to take him home. And of course, he knows he's not going to be hurt, but they don't know his background in martial arts. And we'll see the Jackson character just charge him and knock him onto the couch, giving Dukes an opportunity to get out of there. Now, when they're on the outside, they run through a number of streets, which is pretty popular in Hong Kong.
Don't make us use 50,000 volts on you.
And here we are. And you get two out-of-shape agents trying to follow a very fit athlete in
Right.
Van Damme. Of course, when it cuts to the outside, there's the famous Peninsula Hotel. And as we see him running in a moment,
Is
He's-
that the Peninsula Hotel right there?
it is, yeah.
Oh, okay.
He's actually, right now, he is at Hanoi Street, where you'll see the big banyan tree. Of course, today that banyan tree is no longer there. There's been quite a lot of changes, and of course, we don't see a lot of those signs in Hong Kong anymore either.
That's Tsim Sha Tsui.
Now you'll see him running in a moment. And right now, he's at the junction of Hanai Road, Moby Road, and Hart Avenue for the fans who want to visit. That's where that junction is. Now, Jean-Claude was telling me when he jumped, he actually held this woman because he had so much momentum, he actually almost knocked her over. And here we are now. We're at Victoria Park Road. This area is actually a
Isn't this
typhoon shelter in Causeway Bay.
Yes.
Now, the two actors, it's actually Forrest Whitaker and Norman Burton falling in the water. They didn't use stunt doubles for them.
right? I believe this is where we shot the one of our chase scenes in Double Impact, also when they run across the boats.
Now you see Jean-Claude runs up to the rickshaw, and that's Victoria Park Road. The next scene, he's on a date with Janice inside the East Lake Hotel. And it looks like she'll stop at nothing to get her access to the kumite.
All those different fighters in one event.
But he's very apprehensive to give up any information.
Oh, come on, Frank.
And she's really pushy.
I really love this story. It would mean so much to me.
They have strict rules. No press.
I bet we could think of something.
I thought it.
See, I didn't think any of this was really necessary, but it doesn't really hurt the movie. You know, it doesn't
No, it builds
slow the movie down.
If anything, it probably gives the audience a break from the action.
Yes,
right.
and establish the star power of Jean-Claude and Leah with the close-ups.
Right,
And established the good looks of Jean-Claude in the pretty boy world. And made him such a huge star, you know, because he was really in top shape. He was a young, handsome kid. And both of them were, and it really gave them star potential here. And millions of men and women loved his performance.
So we have an opportunity here to see that Jean-Claude has a terrific physique. He was really in top shape for this movie. And she's still trying to get him to get her into the kumite, but there's nothing he can do for her. When you look out of any of the windows on either Kowloon or Hong Kong Island, it's a fabulous view, the harbour.
Hong Kong is beautiful, so exotic. It's just beautiful. It's a beautiful city. I lived in Hong Kong for many years, and it's really an exceptional city to live in. Very cosmopolitan, very modern, almost Blade Runner style. Many languages spoken. people from all over the world. It's a melting pot of Asia.
It's been losing a lot of that in the last few years with the Chinese pushing down with a heavy hand like they've been doing. One thing I noticed the last time I went there, which was, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, when we were there shooting Double Impact, everybody spoke English. You could go in a little shop, they all knew English. You could converse with them. When I went back a few years ago, a lot of the people spoke no English at all because people were coming in from some of the outlying areas, and a lot of the Hong Kong people were leaving. The white people, especially the Caucasians who had British passports, were getting the hell out of there because the government was cracking down.
So you'll notice now, if you look closely, you'll see Janice walk in with the big spender. So she had a plan B to get into the Kumite. And there she is right there, walks behind Jean-Claude.
Oh, right, yeah.
And we're on day 2 here.
Mhm.
And there's a little bit of aggro. Ken Su is a little upset. The officials want Jackson to break a brick.
And Paolo, there's you in the background, right?
Yeah, warming up for a tough fight ahead.
Dennis Chu, Paolo, and Mohammed Kizzi and Bolo in the background on the platform. Now the platform looks a slight bit smaller from this angle. It doesn't look quite as big as it is.
Now this is good directing here, where you've got the main action is taking place in the foreground, and there's a lot of stuff going on in the background. So all of that, it's not just by happenstance. That's all choreographed. Generally, the first AD will choreograph what the extras are doing in the background. So Newt had a lot of experience with that.
Our first fight up will be the Paco character against Toon, with Pablo Tosha versus John Chung.
And this is mixed martial arts at its finest.
And if you look closer, you'll see the Mong Kong
Old school.
on the floor behind you.
I'm wearing the shorts of my gym, original fighting shorts, with my nickname and my gym's name, Sotonikun Bangkok. And my nickname, Lam Paulo Sotonikun. And this is the first time that people actually can appreciate Muay Thai, classic, with a foreigner doing it, one of the faceless ones. And it was the reaction was incredible worldwide. And you can see how fit I am. I'm in fighting shape.
How much did you weigh in this movie?
About 151, 152.
So that was pretty much your fighting weight.
147 fighting weight.
So you're pretty close to fight weight.
150, yeah.
Those the close over the shoulder shots to you were
This
very
is
good.
when you first see what the knee does. The damage of the knee, and immediately the elbow once he's distracted by the knee. Which is still used today in the UFC, in mixed martial arts, all over. And a jumping knee that usually finishes an opponent or damages his neck. And I thought this would all be interesting to show the audience step by step. So I asked the choreographers that I didn't want to play no ninja, I didn't want to play no any other martial art. I wanted to show what I know, Muay Thai, and respect my teachers. So that's why the reason I played a Muay Thai character.
Now we had Dukes just fight Jackson Su there, who's a very prolific Hong Kong stuntman plus fighter, been in Magic Crystal, King of Beggars. Now we have Chung Lee fighting Juan Paredes.
Michel used to be an amateur boxer. He moved his hands very well.
Mohammed actually directed a few movies, Extreme Force, which I'm in, and Terminator Woman, to mention a couple. There was a few more. And I think actually he was selected to represent Belgium for the 1984 Olympics, I believe. But then he had bad tennis elbow and had to pull out. So what we have here is a great effect when Bolo breaks the leg.
Polo was exceptional. His movement, destructive.
And here we have the bone coming through the skin.
I loved Bolo in this.
You and a lot of other people.
He had incredible energy, and aura.
And charisma.
No, incredible.
And you'll see
Good
her
man,
take out her
very good man.
dictaphone and slowly but surely reporting on the Kumite. Now here, this fight scene really shows Jean-Claude's athleticism. For a big guy at 180 to be able to jump that height. And he throws this spinning hook kick here. The same kick which he threw in Hard Target years later against a famous stuntman called Pete Antico, and he puts him through the glass. He was really good with that spinning hook kick. And
You see the feet taped of the opponent. That's because they're training. We were sparring and training all the time before the actual sequence came up.
we have Bolo against...
That's
A guy in
Colin.
a
He
gi.
was a U.S. Marine.
Now we have Dennis Chu versus Eric Ng. Now, what's interesting about Eric is that he's actually the guy that received the headbutt from the Alex character on the boat in Double Impact, hence 20 pounds heavier.
These are both stuntmen and fighters, real fighters and street fighters, well respected in the community.
You remember him on the set in Double Impact, Sheldon?
Which one?
He was the guy that Jean-Claude takes a suitcase off and headbutts. Now we have
Oh, okay.
the Duke's character versus Wow Gomez. That's actually his real name, and it's actually his name that's on the fight board as well when it announces the fighter that's entering the platform. But very effective, a very big guy. What, 6'6" plus?
Very intense Portuguese, French, from Africa, and very in top shape. But we had to show that sometimes size doesn't matter.
You see his real name on the board. Now we have Ricardo Moro, played by Eric Neff, fighting David Ho Wing Hin. A little bit of an interesting background here. Eric Neff's actually the founder of the Capoeira Angola Center of Los Angeles. And David Ho, at the end of this fight, actually rips his nose off, but they cut it from the finished film. David also has a prolific background in Hong Kong film. He was the bodyguard in Jackie Chan's Protector, and again, like we said, it's the Chad character in Double Impact.
Right.
Hook kicks him, jumping hook kicks him in the head. But again, very well done fight. But there's a quick cut here at the end, and you don't see it. You actually see him put his hand. He's just before he grabs him by the nose. And the next fight we have is Bolo versus John Kafari. He was an Aikido guy. He starred in a lot of Turkish movies. Paolo, what was your experience with him?
Oh, so this guy's a real fighter too.
He was
No,
an
he's not.
No,
He's
he,
not. Oh,
no.
okay.
he was an Aikido
But he
practitioner.
did good stunts, and he was working on his fighting.
Of course, Bolo with the jumping knee there. Very well put together. Of course, the next fight is one of the best fights in the movie. The Duke's character versus Pomola. And of course, we see Jean-Claude gets to strut his technique here. A lovely side kick. And setting it up, he throws a couple of kicks. Doesn't have much of an effect. Of course, we have to prolong the
Yeah, this guy was
the
supposed to
fighting.
be a sumo.
Yes.
Yes. Now, of course, it's funny that you see them take these kicks in the movie because they have to make a fight scene out of it. But Jean-Claude's roundhouse kick is a pretty strong kick. He can hurt somebody. I don't see anybody taking too many of them.
He was a mixture between a sumo wrestler and an island fighter, from Samoa, Tonga,
Oh, right,
etc. And that's what he was representing. He was extremely big and strong.
He's 6'8", I believe.
Really?
He was extremely.
I don't recall him being quite that tall, but maybe he was.
The physique of Jean-Claude with each movement is incredible. The way the muscles ripple, the color, the cinematography in this, it's really, I think it's fantastic. At that time, we were pioneering a new way of fighting and a new action. And I think this is due to the director and cinematographer.
And we just saw something we seen for the first time in cinema. Someone go down in the splits and uppercut an opponent in the groin. And for its time, when it came out in Ireland,
Ahead of its
1989, 88,
Ahead
it
of
was
its time.
phenomenal.
Yeah,
It still
got
is.
huge-
It still is.
Yes, but
huge
back then it was
reaction
even
from-
more.
Yeah, audience went crazy over that.
Where you see the great physique of Jean-Claude, 80 kilos, rock solid, in great shape. And of course, the Chung-Li character is getting more upset every day. Now we have the ultimate showdown that makes the Duke's character want to hurt Chung-Li when they finally meet. We have Jackson versus Chung-Li.
The two bad boys.
And of course, what Chung-Li said by threatening, what Jackson said to Chung-Li earlier after his first fight set the pace for what's going to happen here.
Stop worrying, Frankie. I've got it under control. Sound like my mother.
Now, we had a sign over Duke's character just now, which actually read, practice martial arts and cultivate yourself was the top line, and the bottom one was protect my country and protect my people. That's that orange sign that's just above the Duke's character. And of course he makes the biggest mistake one can make. He thinks he's won. He's going around boasting, looking for
Turns
attention.
his back on his opponent.
Turns
Big
his back on
mistake.
his opponent.
Great shot of Polo.
And actually in this, Bolo actually plays a Korean. If you look at his headband and his
Yes,
his
he was
coach
playing a
is...
Korean fighter, exactly. He was representing Taekwondo and Korean martial arts.
The way his name was spelled in the original script, the last name was Lee, which was a Korean spelling. And for the movie, they changed it so that it was just Le, which is Chinese spelling.
And of course he
But
does
that's
that
that is a Korean symbol on his
on his headband.
headband, yeah.
And of course, Chung-Li does a jump and stomp, almost kills the Jackson character. Now we have the Duke's character. You don't take the headband or a piece of clothing from your friend. That's very personal. It makes it personal. We see the Duke's character enter the platform here. Of course, next we cut to the referee, A.P. George, holding the Duke's character down from going at Chung-Li.
That come and get it, that feeling.
Okay, and here comes
When the here's
Charles
Charlie
Wang.
Wong.
Yes, and
Yeah.
next to him, he passed away with a heart attack last
Right.
year.
So Charlie Wong was owner of Salon Films, which was a service company. It
which
actually
was they provided all the cameras and grip equipment, lighting equipment.
Best company in Hong Kong to work with
Yeah.
foreign, projects.
And then we ended up using his company on Double Impact also.
he actually did Rush Hour and the Dragon the Bruce Lee story, and
Oh, really?
did pretty
Oh,
much everything
yeah.
that went through Hong Kong, right?
Everything that was quality.
You think that's what he wants? Someone to share a room with?
So of course the Duke's character is vowing to take revenge for what Chung-Li has applied to Jackson, and Janice is getting a little frustrated. She doesn't understand what this means to the fighters, and of course Jean-Claude, playing the Duke's character, makes sense of it out here, where he says you want to be the best reporter you can be for you and your father, and he says, well, we're trying to be the best we can be for ourselves and our teachers, basically.
My father was a reporter. I was a good writer. It seemed like the right thing for me to do.
His acting is quite good in this scene also with the dialogue.
That's right.
His acting was quite good in the entire movie.
In the entire
Yes.
movie, absolutely.
And he was also very good in Kickboxer also. And you were the first one to really have confidence in him as an actor, correct?
I believe
Like-
so, yeah. The acting in Lionheart is really miles above his acting in Kickboxer. And people have pointed it out before. The crying scene in Kickboxer is almost kind of embarrassing, the way he's sobbing and whimpering. And we did a crying scene in Lionheart, which is much more dignified. There's tears coming down, but he's not like a child.
Now we're at the Royal Hong Kong Police Headquarters, and Janice is trying to have the Kumite shut down.
Someone almost got killed there today. I have a friend fighting it. I don't want him to get hurt.
So Dennis Chan is really a good actor. He brought a lot of quality to this film, playing Captain Chen. And of course he's
This
She
No,
was
Philip
good
Philip
too.
Chan is his name.
Philip Chan, I'm
Yeah.
very
Chan
sorry.
and
Yeah,
Leah.
Dennis Chan is the other Chan. Yes. Philip
I
Chan.
know,
Now we're on the we're on the
tram.
the peak tram.
going to the peak. But actually, this I believe is we're at the peak. That is
Jean Claude is actually seeing things at one point here because he has to really get the grips and get into the depths of his mind control, being trained as a
situation he's
ninja.
in where people actually get killed when they're fighting. Because in the old days in Asia, fights were very, very rough.
So he looks and he sees the Chong Li reflection in the glass, and he shakes his head like he's got to get himself together here.
It's called fear and paranoia and anxiety created by what's coming up. I thought this piece was excellent for a fighter's way of thinking and everything. I thought this was an incredible sequence, beautiful, with
Here he
beautiful
is.
scenery. Really, the peak. Hong
Here
Kong.
he is on the peak trail, overlooking Hong Kong, and he's thinking back about his instructor, Sensei Tanaka. And here he is at
the peak.
on the concrete slab at the Lions Pavilion, Findlay Park, Victoria Peak. And again, you'll see him going through his hand motions. And again, it's the 9 cutting fingers hand exercises that he's going through. And of course, that slab is no longer at the peak, I guess.
Yes.
They removed that slab for
Yes,
safety, I guess.
But the little tower is still there. This is beautiful, and it still is like this, except maybe even better because Hong Kong has grown so much, and there's much more
Much taller
lighting.
buildings too.
Yeah,
But they did remove that
and
slab.
But this scene is classic to Bloodsport. This inspired millions of young people to go train outside, in the outdoors, do the katas, prepare themselves in martial arts.
You see, here are some of the hand exercises from the 9
I mean,
cutting
look
finger
at his
set.
physique.
Tremendous physique, very lean. And we cut back to
The
the
walled
walled
city.
city, the forbidden city. Again, the
Back into
actual
the Kumite.
location.
It's held there so that there's no police or government interference.
And of course, he'll encounter Captain Chen and some of his policemen as he enters the
It was
Kumite.
held in the walled city because it was a secret location. The Kumite was a secret location, undisclosed. And the whole world wanted to know where it is, but they couldn't. That's why Leah, as a reporter, came in there and managed to get herself in the mix.
So here's Helmer and Rollins and Captain Chen hoping to prevent Dukes from competing in any more of the tournament.
Now, events like this have happened in Hong Kong and in Asia. This is a film, but it's based sometimes on true events that happen, not related to the characters in this film.
So again, these two characters they're stopping at nothing in order to bring Dukes home. But as you'll see now, there's a twist of fate.
Yeah, they used more to, bring up a little bit of comedy and relief,
So now they actually go in and they become a spectator in the sport. Or not really a sport, a killing tournament. So what's interesting about this, you'll hear the referee, A.P. George, which really only did a few movies after this and before, use the word hajime. Hajime is actually a Japanese word for fight. And it's interesting that they use a lot of Japanese names like kumite and hajime. And it's being held in Hong Kong, which is Chinese,
Yeah,
but yet they're using Japanese terms. So I guess it's the ninja
Well,
influence.
the only reason it's being held in Hong Kong is because Canon Films found a good production deal in Hong Kong. Because originally, all of this did take place in Japan in the original script, and according to Frank Dukes, it actually took place in the Bahamas, although even that didn't happen.
So the next fight up we'll see is Dukes versus Paco, played by Paulo Tosha. Paulo was Perez in Deathborn, Victor in Hell, played Bailey in Jet Li's Born to Defend. He was one of the stars of that movie. Comes from the world famous Sartanakul Muay Thai gym in Bangkok. Probably the most famous Muay Thai gym in the world. But it's also the same gym that the Kurt Sloan character walks into in Kickboxer, and it's Peng Sartanakul. So from here, Paolo, take this away.
Oh, I was representing Muay Thai. I was pumped up. This was one of the final fights, and Paco was a very serious character, a fighter, a veteran fighter in Muay Thai. One of those real guys that you come across in the fight world that will never give up.
So there was a real guy named Paco?
No, my name's Paolo, so they changed it to Paco,
okay.
which is strong. It's a strong name.
How long did it take you to shoot this fight scene?
Oh, this fight scene must have taken us a few days, maybe 5 days. Depends on the angle. Some days you shoot from one side, some days you shoot from the other. Sometimes there's injuries. Here I tell him to just touch, like touching gloves, but touch fists. And immediately I attack with a leg kick, inside leg kick, and an elbow that cuts him. This is the first time Jean-Claude bleeds. And yeah, I establish my superiority. Yeah, Muay Thai reigns supreme. As you can see, I'm wearing the red sash, which means I'm a favorite. But actually, you never know in a film.
And as we sit here watching this fight scene, the actual pair of shorts that Paco is wearing in this fight scene is literally right in front of us right here.
We try to keep it real in this, between martial arts, especially karate moves and some ninjutsu moves and Muay Thai. At the time, it was unheard of for Muay Thai to be on the screen. The film world was more orientated.
Now you guys actually roundhouse kicked each other.
These
here.
are real kicks. He's going at me with. He's going. You can see the color changing in the sweat. He's going at me full blast. This took over 3 days to shoot.
Oh, wow.
And you were saying you actually shot it. It ended a little different, where he actually bows to you.
Yes. In the end, I actually in the real film I get knocked out by an uppercut, and then he bows. Because I put up such a good fight. And that was what introduced Muay Thai to the world, and today Muay Thai is the most popular martial art out there.
So right now the next fight up is Chung Lee versus Chuang Ip Mong. Bolo versus Dennis Chu. Actually a very good choreographed fight, but Paul Herzog's score really adds to the fight scenes. It's phenomenal score. It really is. And the music to the fight scene we just seen between Dukes and Paco really added to the fight scene, and the music to this fight scene coming up.
The quality of film, and Steven, the Hong Kong choreographer, and Frank Dukes had a lot to do with this. They were always on set, even if they didn't know the martial art. They were always open-minded to accept, new ideas. Everybody was very open-minded. In the beginning, there were a lot of problems, of course, because most martial artists don't want to lose, and most martial arts hold their own in any situation, so it was difficult to make a fighter or an actor lose and the other one win. But so we decided to go by what is really realistic, and it worked.
This is very well put together. It's a really good fight scene. Bolo could really move for a big guy.
They're exceptionally fast, and we used everything. There's jiu-jitsu moves here of today. There's jiu-jitsu moves of the past. There's ninjutsu movies. There's taekwondo. There's karate. There's Wing Chun. There's different types of kung fu. There's capoeira, and there's Muay Thai, of course. This launched Muay Thai worldwide. It really did.
The first time it was seen on international film.
Yes, and Paco just became the favorite of all the bad boys. There was a difference in audience. The pretty boy, Jean-Claude, and then the bad boys, the real guys.
Right now we see that the Chung Lee character just killed off another opponent, and we can see the referee and the officials, as you'll see in a moment, are not happy.
He did a great job.
That they stand up and turn their back.
He's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Even as vicious as this tournament is, they have a tough time. The fact that he's killing everybody. Hence, you really want to see him get his butt kicked in the final in the final fight. Of course, that's what we're building towards.
He was so powerful.
So you see them, they turn their back. And again, even in martial arts today, if you hurt somebody when you fight in the traditional fashion, you always turn
purposefully. If you hurt them purposefully,
you knelt down and turned away and faced the other direction. And of course, you hear the famous line, "You are next."
That's why in Muay Thai we embrace the fighter after the fight, whether he's been knocked out or no. We bow down to him because whatever happens in the ring stays in the ring.
So right now when it cuts back to a wide angle, you'll see that this was really a terrific set. And you'll see the different Chinese calligraphy on the signs.
And the floor, look at the floor, the mat. Look at the canvas mat, like the UFC, full of blood. Now we see it in real time when we watch mixed martial arts. But this is 1986. We're filming this in 1986.
Now that sign over Jean-Claude's shoulder actually reads, "Practice martial arts and cultivate yourself." And the bottom row actually says, "Protect my country and protect my people." So you'll see they're bedding here.
The money makes everything better and smoother.
Jean-Claude's just meditating here. He was telling me they actually, as you can see, they dropped the platform, which left the final fight scene hard and easy, dependent if you were working up the hill or down the hill. Now, on the sign behind Bolo right there, it says "Disseminate or expand our martial arts." That orange sign right over Bolo's shoulder. So there was a lot of effort and a lot of thought put into this movie, because all those signs have great meaning regarding martial arts. And of course the big red banner reads, "Guests are welcome to purchase tickets." And the small black sign above that reads, "Gather the elites."
And once again, the red sash is the favorite, because in reality, it's difficult to imagine a guy of the stature of Jean-Claude winning a tournament like
Now
this.
that red sign we see just behind AP George to the right above Bolo's head right now, reads, "Spirit, moral of the martial arts." It could mean spirit or moral. So as we can see, Jean-Claude has a terrific physique here.
Both of them.
And Bolo. But as he explained to me, you see they dropped the platform. So it was actually quite difficult to do some of the kicks, because if you were kicking down, you were somewhat fine. If you were kicking up, it was somewhat difficult.
Also,
And,
Bolo was a former bodybuilding champion. I believe Singapore, the bodybuilding champion.
Well, he's a powerlifting champion of Hong Kong.
Of Hong Kong.
Yeah, when he was Yang Xi's. That was pre Enter the Dragon. So we have the final fight. We're here. And, of course, he's got the Jackson character's headband, which is another reason for
Revenge.
the Duke's character to want to kick his butt here. You'll see that Jean-Claude has terrific kicks, terrific flexibility, terrific physique. Just looks great on camera. And, of course, very
There's
athletic.
the famous poster shot.
Poster shot, yes. And so we'll see that the Duke's character is playing. He's a little bit dicey of Chung-Li, and he's not taking anything for granted. That's the way they're acting it. And he's pretty much taking as much abuse as he can. So they're building the fact that not only is Chung-Li a great fighter, but he's also an extremely tough individual.
Yeah.
Were you here? Were you on set for this last
Yes,
fight?
absolutely.
How long did it take to shoot this scene?
Same. Almost every fight, if there were an important fight sequence, took a few days.
How many takes did it take for some of these kicks, or did it get a lot of it?
Plenty.
Plenty of takes.
Plenty. On my case, plenty. Eventually, your ribs start to give in.
Now,
Because you're going full blast or semi-full blast, and then eventually you have to do it again and from a different angle, and eventually someone doesn't want to get hurt as much, and someone complains they got more shooting to do the next day. So it was
now,
difficult.
were they doing a lot of takes because the kicks weren't working, or because they just went over? They were covering it to
Both.
make sure
they
they
were
had
covering.
enough.
David Worth was covering everything, and no, everything was being covered from different angles. There was a lot of time.
Of course, and they lose the low angle when
Look, that's
Jean-Claude
beautiful right there,
throws the
power.
kick, and that makes you very powerful and, of
Yeah.
course, much higher.
The inner strength that comes from the stomach when he delivers a kick is incredible.
Sheldon, what did you think of this when you first saw it? This fight scene?
When I first saw it, when I first saw it, it was the first cut, which was not very good, and we were all very disappointed in it. But
So
then-
in the first cut, you were disappointed in the flow of the movie plus the fight scenes.
yes, the fight scenes
The entire
were not,
thing.
They were not cut well. Jean-Claude was very unhappy, and then we got the other editor on, Michael J. Duthie, and he restructured the film. He did a lot to it. Besides, Jean-Claude went in the editing room with him and they reworked all these fight scenes.
So Chung Lee
And these are the
realizing
classic poses. You see, that's the classic pose. The muscles from Brussels. That's where he gets his nickname,
Right.
Jean-Claude Van Damme.
so
You
as
know?
as
and I
as,
think his performance here was exceptional. You know,
as good as Chung Lee is, he's starting to feel that he might need to cheat a little bit to potentially defeat Dukes.
this was so ahead of its time. This scene, the filming of it, when a fighter gets hit and he's unable to see, all the blurring that happens during a fight.
That's all directing. We got to give it a lot of credit to Newt Arnold.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And David worked for capturing it. That's pretty.
Incredible. He was one of a kind. In those days, he was one of a kind.
What David had told me was that when they shot Jean-Claude, they really overexposed him to make him stand out.
They gave him color and life. He's gold.
And really, at this time period, they had nobody that had the kind of magic on screen doing anything with martial arts in movies.
No.
No, in general, no. I mean, there were some great actors around and, some up-and-coming actors around. I tried to keep it as real as possible in all my work. I didn't even use a stunt double or anything. But he was considered a pretty boy. And in those days, the audience, what people thought the audience wanted was the blue-eyed guy, the white blue-eyed guy. And so for the times, this fitted, but the world is not really like that. There's all kinds of people of all colors. So, but at the time, he was the pretty boy that they were looking for to launch in Hollywood. And he did the role. And all of us were the bad boys. And girls like pretty boys and bad boys. So it just depends on what you like. But you had a mixture in the film of everybody with incredible physiques. And I think Jean-Claude's performance here is really, I don't care what anybody says, you have to be there. It's exceptional. We were feeling it. We were actually feeling it while we were watching him. It was, I think this is his most probably best performance in the ring,
So he's having flashbacks here of his
Yeah,
training.
these
He's getting
flashbacks
his
for me are
composure.
the best thing, I think.
He's getting his composure. Breathe, relax. And of course, he's been trained blindfolded, so he doesn't need to be able to see Chung Lee to be able to defeat him. He just needs to be able to feel his energy.
Yes, and this is all about performance and timing. Finding your space. It's not easy to do all this.
Of course, the referee gets thrown at him here, and he realizes it's the referee because Chung Lee doesn't have a top on him.
A bit overplayed, but it's
But that's the magic of it.
yeah.
And what I like about this is that you can see it's real martial arts. There's no wire work.
Yeah, the
I mean,
forms. the
everything,
forms.
everything. Everybody in there playing their role are
The
genuine.
movement, for example, now the walking, this type of walking, the footwork of the different fighters, very realistic. They practiced for weeks before coming on here. We practiced outside the set. We had mats and we had everything outside the set.
And you would choreograph and rehearse the fight scenes outside.
Continuously, and then taking it to the choreographer, and then the choreographer would agree or not agree, and then, for example, with Jean-Claude, then Jean-Claude would agree to it or not, or we would change a few things, to establish more power on each character. Very interesting way of making.
So as you see, that's the
film.
sign. That top sign says "Gather the Elites." The bottom one says "Guests are welcome."
Boom, what a
purchase
beautiful
tickets.
kick. Deadly. This is still used today all over the world, from Muay Thai to mixed martial arts. Incredible.
And here's the famous 360-degree helicopter jump spin and hook kick. And nobody could really do it as good as Jean-Claude. This particular kick, a lot of people since have tried to emulate it.
I
but
gotta
nobody
say,
did it like that.
Absolutely. One of a kind.
Yeah,
That's
one
it.
of a kind. Nobody could emulate it.
And he's not using stuntmen. There's a lot of stunts that happen here that haven't been called on, but he's not using those stuntmen. He's doing it all himself.
And here he makes Chung Lee say "mate," which essentially in this context means quit. So he concedes to the fact that he quit, that he surrendered, that Dukes is a superior fighter. Of course, everybody loves to see a baddie like that get his butt kicked in a movie.
Absolutely. The drama, the conflict was awesome.
So Sheldon, just to so you wrote this in you signed on to write this in June '85, and then you wrote it through October, was it?
Yeah, I worked a couple of months.
And then what happened after that? So you have a script, you take it to Mark DeSalle,
Yeah, you gave
and what
turned
happens
it into
then? Like,
Mark,
what happens then?
and then Mark gave it to Lou Horowitz, who was the financier. Lou would do the gap financing. If you had some of the money, but you needed more, he'd find a way to fill that gap. And he did a smart thing. He just took it right over to Canon, and Canon was doing well with martial arts movies. They were doing those ninja movies, nothing like this,
American Ninja.
but they were doing those American Ninja,
And the other ones here was Shogasuki.
yeah,
Revenge of the
Shokasugi.
Ninja
Yeah,
and
so
so on.
basically they also did Chuck Norris movies, so they had a good history with martial arts, and so it made sense to take it to Canon.
And they kept the ninja theme going because in this, Dukes is actually a ninja in this movie.
Yes, they were
You
Canon was using the idea of
I don't
Godfrey
know.
O.
I don't know if the word ninja. Is
Well,
the
no,
word ninja
actually,
used.
no,
in
it's
the
not.
movie?
But actually, if you do if the research is done,
Uh-huh.
the uniform actually means ninja. The writing on the uniform, it's
okay.
Chinese characters but with Japanese meaning, and they use the word kumite, that's Japanese. They use the word hajime, that's Japanese, and a lot of that comes from the Frank Dukes claiming to be the real Frank Dukes claiming to be a ninja.
But
sorry, go ahead. What you were
Frank
saying?
had read. He had a lot of books on ninjutsu, and he basically researched all this stuff. That's where it all came from.
So here we are at Kai Tak Airport, and of course, if you wanted to be funny about it, we have the two characters, Helmer and Rollins, waiting for Dukes when we discover he's actually on the plane.
Right.
And Kai Tak Airport no longer exists.
No longer exists, and we could also argue that he used the ninja shadow warrior skills here because he just was on the plane and nobody knew. Of course, I'm joking on that one. But here we are. Kai Tak no longer exists. They have the new Cheplap Kok Airport, and of course up here comes a bunch of credits, and that's it. We see the
And that's how
We
the,
see-
the movie ends. He
we
gets
see-
on the plane, and the tournament's over. He goes home, and that's the end. Roll the end credits.
and we see the standard salute here. Which in martial arts terms mean warrior and scholar, which you put the scholar the open hand and the fist the warrior, and you close your fingers down, meaning you're not challenging, you're saluting out of respect.
Yeah, the sign of respect. And it is a bit of history on Frank Dukes. Nobody, unless
Yeah.
nobody knows.
Nobody has documented any of this.
But who wrote it? But
Frank.
who wrote all that?
Frank.
But how come it's in the film?
Because I put it in the script.
So this
So
movie,
didn't you check that if he was real
There was
or not?
no way to check back then. We're talking about this is before the internet. There was no way to check it.
When we were filming, we didn't know about this.
Right.
No, everybody knew that Frank was an accomplished martial artist. He is. I've seen him at work, and I've seen him sparring and everything. And he's a very big guy, strong guy. But nobody knew about all these incredible feats.
because
That came later on.
He made it all up. No, we had it in the original script, at the end of the original script. It was in the script.
But don't they check things on a script to see if it's true or not, especially when they put this kind of
Who's
stuff?
they, and how do they check?
Whoever's working on that script, the team.
well, aren't
There was no way-
most movies just fiction?
Yeah, that's why I say.
There was
that's
no
why I
way
say
to-
this film is. It's a film.
There was no way to check.
So here we
at the
are.
time.
At the
Here,
time.
here,
Right.
here we are.
'Cause
We're about to
that's
wrap
what
up.
created all
So
that.
just for the fans, Bloodsport was a 42-day shoot, shot over 7 weeks. Last day of shooting was 2nd December 1986. There was 240,000 feet of film used, mostly because they were doing complete coverage of all the fight scenes. Paul Herzog saw the first cut in April 87 with Mark DeSalle, JCVD, and Mohammed Kizzi to discuss the music. Music was installed, written by Paul Herzog, and the cut with the music and everything that we just saw was screened at the screening room in Cannon in August 87. It was released on February the 26th, 1988 in Hollywood, and the rest is history. We have a blockbuster martial arts movie that arguably, or literally, there hasn't been one like this before or since. It was an introduction of mixed martial arts by mixed martial artists of all different styles, from Muay Thai to Shotokan to Monkey Kung Fu to Capoeira and so on and so forth. Kung Fu, different styles.
No, I just think it was an incredible film that set the standard for the future of martial arts worldwide. That set the standard for real martial arts worldwide, because then they took that idea from Muay Thai and fighting for money in the ring and gambling, and they crossed over to what today is considered mixed martial arts. And it was the first time you saw people fighting without gloves. There's no gloves in there. It's all freestyle. So I think this set the standard for the future of martial arts worldwide. And it's still today. It's a unique piece.
So, thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Signing off. I'm James Bennett.
Sheldon Lettich.
Paulo Torsha.
Thank you very much for your time. Hope you enjoy.